Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus. Today's show is presented by Geico. Insurance can be hard. That's why Geico makes it easy with 24/7 claim service and on-the-go policy info in the app. It is easy to Geico. It is Thursday, November 16th. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined by two of my best friends, Liz Loza and Yates. It's not that I don't want to start with you. It's that I want to start with Liz.
Yes,
How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I love being here. Honestly, you guys, I walked into the building this morning and it does not get old. I'm like, I work here. I love these people. The honeymoon phase is still on, so let's make sure it continues.
Let's make sure it continues. Field, are you ready to bring your A game to make sure this continues?
Well, I don't know if I'm ever ready to bring my A game, Daniel, but I was sort of thinking, would you prefer to be D'Amico or Nick right now?
Ooh.
You can choose. Just it's an arbitrary decision.
I would like to be Nick.
Okay, I'll be D'Amico then.
Okay.
And I guess technically D'Amico Ryans wasn't in Houston last year, but last year, riding it out with Davis Mills, totally serviceable NFL quarterback. I think perhaps a bit underappreciated, not perfect by any stretch, but solid, right?
Sure.
Now we have CJ Stroud next to us, right? This is like, Mike yesterday, Davis Mills.
Don't make this
That's
comp.
it.
People
today,
do not like this comp.
CJ Stroud. This is how I'm feeling right now.
That's it.
I love Mike Clay so much, and it makes me so uncomfortable, but I appreciate when you make this because I would love to do, I love Mike because he's so analytical, and I feel like I'm much more vibes-based.
Sure.
So,
Which I pick up on. I definitely get that, Liz. I want to
pick
ask
up
you
on
a
my
We love
question.
Mike. Here's the thing. We've spent so much time thrashing Mike this season that now if we don't do it, people are like, are you guys okay?
Is everything all right?
Yeah.
you guys need to give him more kudos for his glow up, though.
He looks-
Because no one has gotten handsomer as they age, except for maybe you, Field. But
Wow,
you've always been.
thank you.
No, he's looking great. He's looking nice,
Yes.
too, and jacked. Jacked and Tan, I believe, is the
Jacked
name.
and Tan. That's his new nickname.
Yes.
I love it.
That's what we're
Mr.
going to do.
Jacked and Tan. That'll make more sense at some point when we tape something. I'm going to say no more. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it's going to be funny.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
We should probably do it before Liz leaves so that we can have her be a part of it as well.
You know what? Honestly, I was ready to have Liz full-on replace Mike because of some things that happened in the show yesterday. I want to lead off this really quickly, and then we'll dive into Thursday Night Football. I want you guys to know that football is coming in the show.
Like 30 seconds.
But Liz, let's say that you just happen to, best day of your life, you go out to see Taylor Swift at a concert. She's like, I want you to come up and sing with me. You come up and you sing on stage with Taylor Swift.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, oh my gosh, you're incredible. Come join my entourage.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go home that night. You tell your husband you're celebrating.
Yeah.
You decide you're going to have a little midnight snack when you're celebrating.
Non-booze, by the way. Non-booze. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you pull out Greek yogurt with granola or do you get ice cream out of the freezer?
I will definitely get ice cream and 2 spoons.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Let me caveat say that my breakfast every morning is Greek yogurt
Well,
with
fine.
paleo nola.
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
That's a good breakfast food.
Yeah.
It's
No.
just not a dessert food.
No.
Right.
It's not a cheat.
And here's the thing. Just to be clear, that second spoon is not for Mike because he's already been thrown in jail for his take.
It's like a
it's for your
pre-jail
husband,
take.
I'm assuming.
Yes,
Or one of your
of course,
children.
of
Yes.
course.
Yeah. No, Mike is already.
It's for Taylor.
The reason why Mike is not here is because he has yet to post bond.
That's why. That's it. He is in pre-jail right now. Once he lets us know that he has made sure that his ice cream takes are back where they're supposed to be, then we're going to let him back on the show. But Liz, you are here today.
Yeah.
You're going to tell the people the things that they need to hear. We're going to dive into some Thursday night football
Let's
action.
go.
It's about time that we have a very fun Thursday night football game.
Al Michaels rejoices.
We've got Ravens and Bengals. This one should be a lot of fun. Let's start at the quarterback position because we got 2 superstar quarterbacks. Joe Burrow taking on these Ravens. Field, I'm going to ask you this. Multiple passing touchdowns in 5 straight games.
Ooh, is that right?
But this is a tough Ravens defense. They have not allowed more than 20 fantasy points to only 1 quarterback so far this year. So how are you approaching Joe Burrow on Thursday Night Football?
I've got him outside my top 10, Daniel, which if you're in a 10-team league would mean you could look elsewhere for a better starting option.
Wow.
Joe Burrow has played the Ravens 4 times since the start of last regular season. That includes 1 playoff matchup. He has 16.4 fantasy points, 11.6 fantasy points, 18.3 fantasy points, and his quarterback finishes in those 3 regular season games. For the purposes of this exercise, I will omit the playoff game only because we don't have full quarterback weekly rankings.
Yep.
He finished as quarterback 21, quarterback 18, and then quarterback 8. He wasn't a whole lot better in the playoffs. He has 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He has not thrown for 225 yards in any of those 4 games against Baltimore, who, as you mentioned, has been awesome against opposing quarterbacks. By far the best in the NFL. They have allowed just 11.6 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. So yes, I have Joe Burrow outside my top 10, and if not for the fact that somebody swooped in and grabbed my potential replacement in my one Joe Burrow team this week on waivers, then I would be benching Joe Burrow. I was thinking about adding, I don't know how Josh Dobbs is on waivers in that league, but Josh Dobbs, and instead I have Joe Burrow right now, and I will take the decision all the way up until game time between Joe Burrow and Geno Smith.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm leaning Burrow pretty strongly. It's a 6-point passing touchdown league, for which definitely matters as well.
Sure.
But it's tough sledding against this Ravens team, Liz, who no matter who they have available, just makes it hard on Joe Burrow. Maybe it's the familiarity, maybe it's the tenacity, but Joe Burrow does not stomp them like he stomps basically everybody else.
Well, also Joe Burrow, and we saw this last week against Houston, made some mistakes when pressing late in that game, right? He had costly turnovers. They didn't cost the Bengals any points, but they cost fantasy managers points.
Yep.
I do think that the spread on this is 3.5, right? We're expecting a close game. Could, especially with the Bengals playing catch up in terms of their record to the Ravens, press a little bit, make some mistakes. We also saw his right tackle, Jonah Williams, get blown up last week. And what did the Bengals, last week, but what did the Bengals, what did the Ravens do? They lead the league in sacks with 39.
Yeah.
A lot of duress.
A lot of that.
For Burrow. And no Tee Higgins, obviously.
And no Tee Higgins. That is absolutely true. Yep, that's a big part of it. So at least Joe has some more mobility in his game now rather than he did earlier in the season. So I am pumped about that. I want to say this. I don't feel like the Ravens have played a great list of quarterbacks.
They have not, and Mike has been hammering that point home so far this season. It does include, though, they did play Lamar Jackson. They did play Joe Burrow earlier this year, right? They have faced this.
A limited Joe Burrow.
Limited Joe Burrow. So I get it. The idea of benching Joe Burrow is frightening given how well he has played after his early season slump. But if you have a decent option, like if you have a Russell Wilson or if you have a Josh Dobbs available, there are crazier things than playing Josh Dobbs over Joe Burrow in fantasy.
Yep.
As crazy as that sounds when I say it right now.
The passing volume for Burrow, though, is the thing I can't move away from. Not just his accuracy and his ability, but the Bengals are third in pass attempts on the season, or at least he is third in pass attempts on the season. So, there's going to be volume there. But I do think he's going to be in for a tough day.
It does feel like it's going to be a tough day. And like you said, no Tee Higgins, Liz. So now when you look at these wide receivers, Field, we're obviously starting Jamar Chase. He's a top 5 wide receiver.
Awesome.
As soon as as long as he's starting, you are starting him. The question becomes, is there anyone else that you want to start? A Tyler Boyd, a Trenton Irwin?
Yes.
Which one of these secondary wide receivers do you like?
I evidently did not pull Tee Higgins out of my ranks fast enough to see the Tyler Boyd rankings update go through, but Tyler Boyd's inside my top 30 tonight. As a matter of fact, Tyler Boyd played 92% of the snaps last week with a team-high 12 targets and up over 100 yards. The Ravens will be without Marlon Humphrey tonight, their best cornerback and just a really good player in general. That helps a little bit. So Tyler Boyd is definitely startable tonight, even in a difficult matchup. His day could have been even better last week, if not for a drop touchdown that he took a lot of heat for after the game. Brutal. But the volume is way too good to ignore for Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd also, so he is managing 12 targets without Tee Higgins in week 10, 7 targets without Tee Higgins in week 5, and had at least one red zone look in both of those games. I love that you mentioned the absence of Marlon Humphrey, because in his replacement, you're going to see probably more Rock Ya-Sin, who did struggle versus Amari Cooper last week. He let, obviously Humphrey hurt himself partway through that game. But in coverage of Amari Cooper, Rock Ya-Sin let Cooper catch 2 of 3 for a decent number of yards.
Heck yeah. So. I'm with you guys on having Tyler Boyd here as the number 2 within this offense. He's the guy that I would play behind Jamar Chase if I had to play another wide receiver from my roster.
I think it's a good option.
I think he's a good option too.
Yeah, very good option.
I think he's a good
Any
option.
concern about, because of the short week and the soreness that Chase had? I mean, I know he caught over 100.
You know what? No, here's the reason why.
Okay.
He's off the injury report entirely this week.
Oh, okay.
Totally off.
Good.
So last week, after missing practice on Wednesday and then being limited Thursday and Friday, not on it at all. Now, they're not really practicing this week, but this team still has to submit an injury report.
Yep.
So off the injury report entirely for Jamar Chase. Good news there.
We got Mixon as a low-end RB2. I don't feel great about him in this matchup, but with the volume that he's getting and the kind of production that he gets, he's a guy that you probably need to start based on what else you have available at running back. Let's move ahead and talk about these Ravens running backs, because this is my question, guys.
Go
this
for
is
it. Yeah.
where it is at. Gus Edwards has been the guy that you have been looking at because he's been getting in the end zone.
Yeah.
He's been fine in the painted area. Last week, got in the end zone. Only 9.5 fantasy points outside the top 30 at running back. But all the excitement, Field Yates, is on Keaton Mitchell. Everyone is excited to see what this kid can do. He's just not getting as much volume.
14 snaps last week.
Not enough.
Now, he's going to turn whatever touches he gets into potential big plays because he's so dang fast, and he has been showing that.
But John Harbaugh said, I think he's earned some more touches in this backfield. I don't know what that means.
Right, we
How
don't
much
know
a
what that
coach
means.
speak is that?
That's
Yeah.
a very fair point, because does that mean that he goes from 14 snaps to 20 snaps?
Right.
Does it mean he goes from 14 snaps to 35 snaps? I don't think the role for Gus Edwards is in peril because the Ravens love this guy. And think about what's happened since J.K. Dobbins went down. He has 10 or more rushes in 7 of his past 8 games. The only exception was the week in which he had 5 rushes. That included 2 touchdowns, 5 for 53 and 2 touchdowns because they were absolutely blowing out the Seahawks in that game. Here's the big thing with Gus Edwards is you are betting on a touchdown. In games without a touchdown this season, here are Gus Edwards' weekly finishes. RB46, RB47, RB35, RB38, all RB38. Under 10 fantasy points in every single one of those games.
Outside the top 35, every single week he doesn't score a touchdown.
Yep. In games he has scored a touchdown. RB22, RB3, RB6, RB11, RB31, which was last week when he actually scored a touchdown but did fumble as well. So you are banking on Gus Edwards scoring a touchdown if you are rolling the dice and starting him. But his teammate Keaton Mitchell is even more of a dice roll because, while he might average 3 times as many yards per carry as Gus Edwards, he might play 1/3 of the snaps of Gus Edwards as well.
The phrase dice roll, though, on Edwards is interesting in terms of him, you're right, scoring a touchdown, because the data has proven that he is likely to score a touchdown. Since week 6, Edwards has recorded 18 red zone carries and 7 touchdowns. The touchdown bonanza officially began in week 7, but you could see it coming in week 6. I like the idea of it is harder for me to bet on a long run from Keaton Mitchell, even though there is data that supports the likelihood of that, than there is of Gus Edwards scoring a touchdown. Worth mentioning that the Bengals are allowing 5 yards per carry to opposing rushers.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I wanted to apologize during my thoughts on the Ravens running backs. If you heard some ambient noise, I realized that we have something called Vananit, which is a Bluetooth monitor for your children. And I sometimes forget to close the app. Like I can watch my children from afar. When they're in their when they're in their respective cribs. And so one of my kids does not sleep all day because she's almost 2. The other one still sleeps a lot. So if you heard her crying, my apologies there.
Well,
but it's cute. She's a cute crier.
Always
cute crier.
Yeah. Always cute. That's
crier.
why.
Yeah. She actually is not much of a crier either. So I just jinxed it. But up until this point, she has not been much of a crier.
Good to go.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at these wide receivers, guys, are you looking at either Zay Flowers or Odell Beckham Jr.? Do you have a confidence in either one of these? Or at this point, is it still one of those like, hey, man, if I'm starting a Ravens wide receiver, I'm doing it, but not necessarily with confidence based on what the volume is? That's where I'm at on Ravens wide receivers.
Correct. If I'm starting one, it's Zay Flowers because he's by far the most explosive of the receivers.
And reliable.
Yep. But his targets have really leveled off. I mean, dramatically since the beginning of the season when he was red hot. And those explosive plays for Zay have not been nearly as prevalent. He's a great talent. But this offense kind of stuck in the mud recently.
Yeah.
You know, Lamar's gone back-to-back-to-back games. Passing offense, I should say. Back-to-back-to-back games under 14 fantasy points. Pretty crazy.
That's bad.
Pretty crazy, yeah.
That's bad. I got a bunch of questions, and we'll talk about it a little bit later because we got a couple other quarterbacks. This week when we did the score report, I answered a bunch of voicemails. I cannot tell you how many voicemails were like, can I start Josh Dobbs over Lamar Jackson? Can I start this person over Lamar Jackson? It is tough where people are at. It's a lot of overreaction because of how bad Lamar has been recently.
Lamar Jackson is a career 7-2 against Cincinnati, 12-4 touchdown to interception ratio over his career, averages over 70 rushing yards against them for his career. Now I understand that Lamar isn't rushing necessarily as much as this year as he was in previous years, but the Ravens are also, if the Bengals are top 3 in pass attempts, the Ravens are top 3 in rush attempts. It is a Thursday night, and what do we know about Thursday night games? Usually rushing yards go up because those defenses are a little gassed.
Love that. Liz, yes, queen.
I love you.
That's so good.
I, just in case people were watching this and sort of hearing our tenor, I think we all have Lamar actually ranked lower than where you see him on that rankings panel right now.
He is a little bit lower than that, but not too much lower.
But he's still a starter. But
yes.
I certainly Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are going to top my rankings almost every single week here.
All right, so let's talk about. Well, you know what? Let's pick this.
Maybe a couple spots down. I was looking over Liz's shoulder here. Let's pick the game. Let's do it.
Pick this game. Yeah, Liz Loza, you got Baltimore and you got Cincy. Which city are you going with tonight?
I'm taking Baltimore.
Baltimore. Field Yates, what about you?
I am going to go with Baltimore as well, and I feel really bad about it, and to the point that I'm going to switch my pick to Cincinnati.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. All right.
That's how long it took me to persuade myself to make
to come out of that.
Pick.
Yeah. I'm gonna default to the Baltimore Ravens. I lived in Baltimore for 2.5 years. I
Good
have
enough reason to
good
pick 'em.
affinity for that city. I absolutely love them.
We had a great live show back in the day in Baltimore.
Oh my gosh,
I miss live shows.
Good. Yeah,
that again
was a lot
sometime
of fun.
soon. I heard there's like an opening at a place in Oahu that maybe wants to host a live show. I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing.
Is that a friend's house?
Oahu is the big
in Hawaii.
Is Hawaii? Yeah. So I think we just need to find a place. I don't have a friend's house there. Field, do you have a friend house?
I've got family there. Yeah,
Oh.
half my family is living out in Hawaii. So that would my dad's from Hawaii. Yeah.
Oh,
I know you learn something new every day. So that's where I get my cool side.
It's way more interesting than the Nanit.
Yeah, the Nanit. Yes. My mom's from Ohio, so
okay, all right.
Quite a bit more exciting to be from
Way
Hawaii.
to bring it back to the Nanit energy with an Ohio drop.
That's so good.
Well, that's why you took the Bengals.
There we go.
Oh, man. Way to bring that full circle.
All right.
Nice job, Liz Loza. All right, let's dive into our Week 11 preview.
Do it.
Part 1. We always dive into a couple of these things on Thursday so we can have a little bit more time on Friday. Let's start with the Dolphins, guys. De'Von Achane, his window to return has opened. 21-day window has returned. He was limited in practice yesterday. Something to note, Raheem Mostert, also limited in practice with an ankle injury yesterday.
Kind of every week for him now.
It is one of those things where it's like he's an older guy. You're trying to be able to like limit some of that stuff. How are you approaching these running backs field if we're not totally sure if we're going to see De'Von Achane? Let's say he does play.
I think he'll play.
Okay.
I think he is, to quote Adam Schefter, tracking to play on Sunday. You're going to play both of them because these guys just break the model. So I think Raheem Mostert's an easy decision because of how great he has been this year. Like it'd be really hard to fade Raheem Mostert based off what he's done for you up to this point. With Devon Achane, just a reminder of what Devon Achane was doing prior to this stint on IR. He's played 4 games this year.
Yep.
The first game he played, I think, 6 snaps and barely touched the ball. In the last 3 games that he played prior to going on IR, Devon Achane was RB1, RB5, and RB4 on a total of 43 touches. So 14 a game, basically, for Devon Achane led him to being a top 5 finisher in each of those 3 weeks. A total of just 6 catches. So 37 rushing attempts. But the part that just continues to blow my mind is his worst game of those 3 in terms of yards per carry was 11.3 yards per rush.
Ridiculous.
So is that going to happen every single week? Of course not. But you have to decide whether you want to be the sucker or not. Because if you're the person that sits Devon Achane and he goes nuts once again, you're the sucker. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be the sucker in life? I don't think so.
Nope.
So I am not benching Devon Achane because while I'm sure there is some model that Mike has crafted that has told us that it's very unlikely to continue to average 11.3 yards per carry, we're talking about arguably the fastest player amongst the running backs in Miami in an offense that sets up players for big plays better than any other offense in the NFL. I'm riding the hot hand of Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. In part, by the way, to note, Jeff Wilson Jr. last game out played just 17% of the snaps. One of the fears was that, hey, Devon Achane comes in as a third-round rookie. How much of a role is there going to be if both Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert are playing a lot? I'm not totally convinced Jeff Wilson Jr. will be active on Sunday.
Yeah.
They might just say, if we have Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane and Savon Ahmed, we'll roll with those 3.
Good to go there.
Yeah.
Devon Achane, 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's forgive him for week 1, right?
Yes.
Like, let's say he played
Doesn't
for
count.
3 weeks, 45 touches, 43 touches. He turned all of that into 518 scrimmage yards and 7
ridiculous.
total touchdowns.
That's unreal.
He remains, despite those 3 big weeks, everything that has happened since, remains the RB1 in fantasy points per opportunity.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Wow. That is
No
unreal.
one has beat it yet, and he's not even been on the field. And wait, the Miami Dolphins are 13.5-point favorites against the Raiders.
The Raiders, This is going to be a fascinating week for the Raiders. I'm so happy about what they've done over the past 2 weeks for them.
Tomato
right?
cans.
Right. But that's the question is like, what does this look like? Who's probably the most anxious for this game to begin on Sunday? Josh McDaniels, who's probably like, I know I didn't do a great job, but I might have been able to beat the Jets and the Giants as well.
You never want to see your ex turn out with someone hotter than
right.
you, right?
Yes.
So, you want to see your ex get that divorce.
So,
I mean, maybe. Did I say that out loud?
I mean, we're not. This show isn't live.
That's right. Don't worry about it.
You guys can tweet at us if that was actually live and let us know. But yes, I mean, this is a potential back to earth game for the Raiders.
Yep.
And if not, then we have our story of the day on Monday on NFL Live. If they go to Miami and upset them, then 4 p.m. Eastern time, watch Laura and the crew. Terrific football talk.
All right, so we got De'Von Achane ahead of Raheem Mostert. If for some reason one of them doesn't play, you're absolutely playing the other one. That's going to get a ton of touches in this game.
If Achane plays, no matter what, I'm playing.
You're playing him.
And honestly, like maybe it's just because the rosters that I have Raheem Mostert on, he's just such an obvious play for me relative to the other options I have.
Sure.
I have him as RB27, but still feel pretty good about Raheem Mostert because he might go off for 11 carries and have 125 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
He managed double-digit touches in the 3 weeks in which he shared the backfield with Achane anyway.
So at that point, you're talking about he's able to split that workload without a problem.
I mean, if you had a running back, particularly on this offense, or an offense as explosive as this one, that's managing double-digit touches, aren't you thinking RB2 automatically anyway?
Yeah.
On the other side of this game, I see that we were talking about the Raiders. Liz, how you feeling about Davante Adams?
I'm so glad he finally drew double-digit targets.
Right? Finally got 14 targets last week. I'm thrilled with that.
I know the conversion rate. You're going to get here to the conversion rate?
No,
okay.
I'm going to have the optimistic take as well.
Okay.
You wrap it up, though. Keep going.
No.
I mean, he had
13 targets,
54% target share last week.
Yeah.
54%.
Only the fourth time that's happened all season, by the way.
So Davante Adams had 13 targets. Every other Raider combined for 12. And I want to read a quote to you.
That's a good one.
This one comes from Antonio Pierce. And Antonio Pierce is either a fantasy football player or just a very logical and smart man, or both. This is Antonio Pierce. This was after the game this past Sunday night. Quote, the first couple plays were right to him being Devonta in this case. Get the ball in his hands, get him going. When you've got one of the best receivers in the game, I'm not stupid. I know who to get the ball to.
That sounds
Music
good to me.
to my ears.
Love that.
I do not vote for the award, but I'm going to find a way to convince somebody who does vote for the Coach of the Year to immediately name Antonio Pierce the Coach of the Year, because this is what it's all about. I know that obviously it helps us for fantasy football purposes, but just logically, like if you're the Raiders, if you're going to be a good offense, Davante Adams is going to be the fulcrum of that offense in the passing game. So Davante with a 54% target share last week, it won't be that robust. But if he's at 25% or above in a game in which they could be down big, Davante Adams should have yet another busy day. You'd like to see those, as Liz alluded to, you'd like to see those 13 targets turn into even more catches. But given where we were a month ago, we are trending in the right direction with Davante.
Also, no hesitancy because of the matchup, which I appreciated, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you
I
would
don't
see
think
the Jets. Oh, well, he's going to draw on top Gardner, Sauce Gardner. That's really tough. Nope. Who cares? We're going to trust in Davante. He's been screaming about it rightfully for weeks. Go ahead, even with a less than strong-armed quarterback under center. Feed him.
Feed him. Absolutely. Find ways to put the ball in Davante Adams' hands. We all have him ranked as wide receiver 11. So back in on the Davante Adams train, starting him this week.
Volume makes him a low-end wide receiver 1.
Yes, at this point. Part of the problem was he wasn't seeing as much volume as we had hoped for. All right, Texans offense. This one is interesting. They get the Arizona Cardinals. Earlier this week, we had a conversation, Field Yates, where you and Kevin Pulsifer and I had a debate. Would you rather have CJ Stroud or Patrick Mahomes the rest of the year?
Rest of the season.
In fantasy or real life?
In fantasy. If you had to choose, would you rather have CJ Stroud rest of the year or Patrick Mahomes?
I would prefer CJ Stroud, and I will tell you why. My issue with the Chiefs is that beyond Travis Kelce, they do not have a downfield target, and I think that that is negatively affecting Patrick Mahomes. Not win record, but passing stats. So give me CJ Stroud, who, whether he is unlocking this talent or it is elevating him as well, whether it's a mutually beneficial situation, he is finding talent and they are helping he's dragging them and in a positive way, and they are dragging him, and I love it.
So I also took CJ Stroud in this conversation. Field and Kevin Pulsifer took Patrick Mahomes. We had a poll that we put up, and the poll finally came back. We wanted to let it sit for a couple days and soak.
Yeah.
61% would rather have CJ Stroud over Patrick Mahomes the rest of the year.
What's up, the people? We are the people's message.
So,
Gosh, I need to think about some stuff right now.
That's interesting. The idea that we are having this conversation, no one would have thought in week 11, we're talking about the number 2 quarterback from the Texans offense potentially being started over top of the former MVP Patrick Mahomes. But that's where we're at. I mean, people are at least emotional enough to say, I've seen enough out of CJ Stroud that I want to keep rolling with him. So, in spite of all that,
it's just like you have to be very careful, because if you say something, it's going to sound like you are speaking negatively of a player in CJ Stroud that I absolutely love.
I know
but CJ Stroud is playing unbelievable football.
I think out of his gourd is the term.
That works. Out of his gourd.
Yes.
He has 2 games with 20 or more fantasy points. Patrick Mahomes is playing booty cheeks relative to his own standards.
That's true.
And he has 4 games with 20-plus fantasy points. Yep. So you don't think Patrick Mahomes, like coming out of a bye, the team is exactly where they want to be, right atop the AFC standings once again?
Look at the people that asked them to look at them.
All right. I mean, that's interesting.
Yep.
But specific to this week, I do still feel really good about CJ Stroud. And I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, like, do you want to be the sucker? And the sucker is the person that benches the player, expecting that player to eventually fall off the cliff. And in this case, if you expect that out of CJ Stroud, I don't know why you expect that, but he's facing a Cardinals team that has allowed over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, one of the best or one of the worst in the NFL, one of the better matchups in the NFL, I should note. And over the past 2 weeks, CJ Stroud has done something that only 2 other rookies ever have done: 800-plus passing yards in a 2-game stretch. So Stroud could not be more excited for the city of Houston, for Texans fans, for those that have him in fantasy. While I would prefer Patrick Mahomes, crazy as that is, CJ Stroud deserves to be started this week.
Fun nugget, fun statistical nugget. He's been nails. We know that, right? QB4 in money throws, which are exceptionally difficult passes, with 16 on the season. Your buddy Patrick Mahomes has 8 money throws, is the QB 18 in money throws.
You said 4 for CJ
He's
Stroud?
the QB4 with 16.
Okay, got it.
The QB 18 with 8 for Patrick Mahomes.
So half as many.
Okay, so half as many, exactly. Okay. And he's been pressured. He's the QB 8 on pressured throws with 71 on the season and still maintaining a YPA of 8.3.
So we like CJ Stroud this week.
I mean, I just want to, because it's one thing, I think sometimes in fantasy we're like, oh, he's been great. Look at this. I got all these fantasy points. But like when you dig a little deeper and are able to contextualize the stats and figure out how they are happening, I think it's really beneficial. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and I think we don't have to relitigate the entire conversation, but I think the strong counters would be that Mahomes has more passing touchdowns. He has way more rushing yards, like nearly 3.5 times many rushing yards, and those certainly matter. Those are the kind of things that I think we find to be a bit stickier over time than a 40-plus point effort, which is a big part of the reason why CJ Stroud has more fantasy points per game just ever so slightly than Mahomes up to this point. I don't mean to be a creeper here, Liz, but a moment ago when we were doing our Ravens-Cincinnati preview, I looked over your shoulder to see if we had our rankings on Lamar exactly aligned. And I noticed you're one of those people that keeps 97 tabs open on your browser.
Yeah. I do. I don't know how you don't. I got a lot going on in my brain.
Out and then you reopen them. Like, how do you know if you're like, oh, I got to go check my my Gmail tab? How do you know where to find it?
The little Gmail sign?
No, there's too many. When you've got 30 things up there, I can't find it that quickly. That's not how that works, Liz.
I mean, I am a
multitasker.
Thank you. I am a working mom. I multitask all these things. Look, I'm juggling. I got tinsel in my hair. Look at that.
Speaking of, I wish I had mentioned this a little earlier in the show when we were talking about Devon Achane. Very funny moment in the press conference with Mike McDaniel where someone had asked him specifically, he's like, hey, so if Achane comes back, is this going to be one of those things where he's going to ramp up to a workload or will he have a full workload like right off the bat? And Mike McDaniel said, how much money you got on fantasy football? What do you do? What kind of a question?
Mike's our kind of
That's
coach.
right. He knows what's up.
Mike's going to be on the show next week. That's probably not true, but it'd be awesome.
Let's speak into existence. Let's make that happen. Hey, Speaking of some running backs,
Yeah.
Texans had an awesome running back last week. Devin Singletary, 150 yards.
Some might say he motored his way to 150 yards.
Motor
Some
Singletary.
might say
Well
that.
done.
23.1 fantasy points. We have not really felt like there has been a Texans running back that we feel confident in starting on a on a consistent basis, Liz. Do you think this week against Arizona, you're either going to start Devin Singletary or Dameon Pierce?
Well, I just want to caveat this because last night when I flew into the Hartford airport, I went to the car
Great
rental.
airport.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful.
It's great,
very
yeah.
easy to navigate. Very clean. Very friendly. I went to the car rental to pick up my car.
Did you get a Jeep?
Hold up.
Okay, sorry.
And shouts to Tucker at the rental place who was like, you work for ESPN? And I was like, I do. He was like, you can look at my fantasy lineup.
Shut up. That's
And
so
I was
good.
like, sure. And he goes, any thoughts on whether or not Dameon Pierce is going to be back?
Oof.
And I said, well, here's what I know. And Devin Singletary just had a big game. And he was like, I'm a big Texans fan. I'm rooting for Dameon Pierce. So I worked out a trade situation with him, answered a trade question. And then at the end was like, now I would like that Wrangler, please.
Stop.
And your girl's driving a Wrangler.
Man, let's go.
Yes,
what
but
it's all
thank you,
about.
Tucker, am I allowed to say the name of the
You can
company?
say whatever you want, Liz.
Thank you to Tucker at National Car Rental for hooking your girl up. And I hope that trade that we countered works out well for you. As it relates to Dameon Pierce,
Amazing.
though, he did not practice on Wednesday.
Yep.
And I'm not sure that even if he does come back, he's going to command the same kind of volume he was previously, 16 to 17 touches, after Singletary's big game. I also want to say, though, that the way that the Texans passing game is clicking is certainly helping the backfield to
Absolutely.
produce. And that was not necessarily the case earlier in the season when we were really frustrated with Pierce's efficiency before the injury.
Yep. I've got Devin Singletary as running back 30 this week field, which means in all honesty, I would rather not play him because I feel like last week is one of those, like, this kind of came out of nowhere. I want to see it happen again. But if you need a guy, there's obviously reason for upside, in part because of this defense is not very good in Arizona.
It's a great matchup.
And it's a really good position for him coming out of last week without potentially having Dameon Pierce.
I think it's fairly straightforward, though. If Dameon Pierce, and Devin Singletary both play, don't think you're going to probably have a better option. If Dameon Pierce is out and that ankle injury, as Liz alluded to, kept him out of practice on Wednesday, it's a really good spot for Devin Singletary because the Cardinals are one of 3 teams that are allowing at least 20 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So a great matchup. And Singletary had over 30 rushing attempts last week. I mean, that is a massive
Career
workload.
high.
Yeah, and a guy
makes
that, by
it
the way,
anomalistic.
yes, but without Dameon Pierce, he could easily see 22, 23 carries this week in a very good matchup. And Singletary, for a small guy, has held up very well. He's never missed a game in his career.
Really?
He's up there. I mean, I remember Mike would always harp on the fact that, like, over the past couple of seasons, like, only 2 running backs played every game. Very few games missed for Mr. Motor Singletary, at least due to injury. Very sturdy player. And if there's no Dameon Pierce, I will note that the Texans have developed this pattern I've noticed that, like, you don't practice, you don't play in Houston. That's kind of how it goes. So not all Wednesday DMPs are created equally. Those in Houston catch my attention more with maybe those in wherever, you name it. Seattle, for example, where no one practices on Wednesday.
So this is a great pivot coming out of that conversation because we got some wide receivers to talk about that also had some practice stuff. Noah Brown has a knee injury, did not practice on Wednesday.
Yep. Keep an eye on that one.
Robert Woods has a foot injury, also did not practice. And then Nico Collins with the calf was limited on Wednesday. So you've got 3 of the 4 pass catchers that we like in this offense that definitely have had some injury things that they are dealing with through practice field.
Yeah, the one that would be most concerning if he doesn't go again today would be Noah Brown because he's young.
Oh, I was going to say Nico Collins.
Nico Collins has said he's going to play.
Okay.
He told the media yesterday I'm playing. Or he told at least one reporter who tweeted it that he is going to play. So I expect Nico to be back this week. Robert Woods would not surprise me if that's management because it's a foot injury. Noah Brown is a new injury. So that one I think I'm keeping my eyes out for more than the other 2 because I do not know a whole lot about it. But if all 3 of those guys play, plus, of course, Tank Dell, there's really only 2, I think, room for 2 in most fantasy lineups. Nico will end up being, along with Tank Dell, the 2 highest ranked if all 4 are active. Tank Dell has become a target vacuum of late. He had 14 last week. Now, he caught just 6 of them, but between the obvious talents, the fact that he's not just a slot guy, he actually can run. He has like had multiple big plays this season down the field, and the target volume makes him very close to a lineup lock. Nico Collins, despite the fact that his target share has dropped recently, he has just 23 in his last 4 games, which is nearly half as many as he had in the first 4 games of this season. He's currently 3rd in the NFL in yards per catch. So if he's going to average 18 yards per catch, he's at 17.5 this season. He may not need 7 catches to pay off. He may only need 4 or 5, which is reasonable if he's seen 5 to 7 targets in a game.
Yeah. I really love has nothing to do with fantasy, but the juxtaposition between a 6'4" Nico Collins and a 5'8" Tank Dell when they're out there on the field together, it's obvious how little Tank is in comparison, and yet he is just soaking up the targets out there in this offense. He looks fantastic. Liz, how are you looking at these wide receivers?
Well, I think we need to take a moment and also mention Dalton Schultz as a huge piece of this passing game, because you mentioned the big prototypical X that Nico Collins is, right, and his size. He also, to put a point on what Field said, still, despite missing week 10, leads the Texans offense in receiving yards. So he's not just, a contested catch guy who ends up in the end zone or climbs the ladder and wins in those contested situations 5 yards out or even in the end zone. But I love that. And then you do have the skinny Tank Dell, which I love that Field, that there are skinny, smaller, quote, undersized players that don't just play in the slot, that can actually find separation on the outside with their explosive and speed.
One of two of them.
That's wild.
Crazy.
I've never heard anything like that before. I wonder if Marquise Brown is interested in that scouting report.
Ooh, how about that? Is that a message to Marquise or to the people that doubt Marquise?
Well, I'm not sure Marquise is an alpha still, but I do think when Tank also has a little bit of a fire plug like Dalton Schultz helping him out in the middle and a fire passer, then he can work both sides or all levels of the field.
I like that.
The balance in this offense, the balance among these pass catchers is really exceptional. And the fact that they are being elevated by a young passer who isn't afraid to throw deep or into tight windows is only helping the situation. Last note on Noah Brown, I just want to say, I really hope he's not hurt or that this isn't after 2 excellent showings, because he is a player. And this is just this isn't fantasy. This is just as a fan of the game, a player who I think was underutilized in college and often had flashes. And so I felt he wasn't really used as much as he should have been at Ohio State. And to see him kind of build that momentum and then get it almost robbed from him is really disappointing. So I hope he gets healthy, and I would love to see him continue to ascend, even if it doesn't. He's on a 1-year deal, right?
He's on a 1-year deal. I'm trying to see if anybody has updated on Twitter anything from today as it pertains to the Texans, but it sounds like they haven't practiced yet today. To
really be a full-time and not just a role player.
He's been great.
Yeah, he has been great.
He's been fantastic.
It's been a narrative of his career that I just wanted to point out to people who may not, be Dallas Cowboys fans.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you're still feeling pretty good because Jake Ferguson is plugged in plenty well for Dalton Schultz, so that's a thing. Yeah. Let's talk Dalton Schultz. Let's talk Trevor Lawrence. Field, last time Trevor Lawrence scored 20 fantasy points was
week 1.
Oh.
Did he score 20 fantasy points in week 1?
Oh, I'm sorry. He was inside the top 8 in week 1. Did he even score 20 fantasy points that week? No.
Sometime last year.
Hasn't happened this season.
He has not scored 20 fantasy points at all this year. Last week against San Francisco, he scored 2.1 fantasy points. Yeah. Are we just out? We straight up benching Trevor Lawrence at this point?
I got him as quarterback 19 myself. Let's take a look at those last 8 games he's played, Daniel, because in week 1, despite the fact that he did not score 20 fantasy points, he was quarterback 8 for the week.
Okay.
Over the past 8 games since then, he has 7 total touchdowns. I'm sorry, 7 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only 1 game with at least 300 passing yards. Moreover, you may be saying to yourself, do you remember when the Browns played the Titans and everybody was like, okay, if Deshaun can't do it against the Titans, then it's a problem. Now, we did it against the Titans, but Tennessee, not the matchup that you may think of it as. They're allowing just 16.6 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, right in the middle of the NFL. Not a positive matchup, not a negative matchup today, or a Sunday, I should say, for Trevor Lawrence. So with the way that he has been playing recently, the fact that he has some, but not a ton of rushing upside, I've got Trevor Lawrence not just outside my top 10, Daniel, but outside my top 15 as well. The eye test has not been kind to this offense that has so much star potential the entire season. They've been okay in moments, but they have been way too inconsistent.
He has as many weeks outside the top 30 as he has inside the top 10 at quarterback. Mind you, there's only 32 quarterbacks that should be playing every week.
That's right. Yeah, that's a scary thought right there.
So it has not been great. Do you have any feelings on Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, I'm frustrated that he only has 2 multi-touchdown games on the season. When you add the addition, I know you talked about this earlier in the week on, I think, Monday's Focus.
Thanks for listening to Monday's Focus.
Of course.
He needs tinsel in his hair.
He did not. He does need tinsel in his hair. Maybe some teal tinsel.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit.
They got that in Florida Plus.
Yeah, definitely.
He's basically outside of the QB 18 in every statistical category that matters.
Ugh.
Whereas last year he was inside the top 10 in all of those.
All of those things.
Yeah.
What's going on there? I mean, they got Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk hasn't stopped.
Well, we know that we saw last year that he's still a young quarterback who struggles with some mistakes, some anticipation, and we know that offense, he's taken 24 sacks on the season.
Yeah.
That O-line is still an issue. I think that he is afraid to push the ball deep to Calvin Ridley, and that's why he's relying on Christian Kirk like we saw again last week and Evan Ingram. There's a fear factor here.
So that could be it. I'm not going to dismiss that possibility. The first thought that comes to mind for me, and this is going to sound, people are listening are going to be like, you might be the single dumbest analyst of all time when you say this, but sometimes I think in sports, when a team does not meet expectations, we start looking for a zillion different solutions. Usually it's like fire the coach, fire the GM, bench the quarterback, do things like this, that, and the other, trade away everybody. Sometimes the solution is play better. I listened to Doug Peterson talk about how the Jaguars offense has just been bad this season. And he was talking about things like, and he said, like, we got to coach better, no doubt. But it's like, hey, we have a full start on first 10. That kind of puts us behind the first and 10. That puts us behind the 8 ball. Then on second and 10, we have a blitz protection mistake where one guy goes this way, he's supposed to go that way. And the next thing you know is a sack. Then on third down, like we're 3rd and 22. It's like sometimes just playing better goes a long way. Because if you ask me, does Jacksonville have the personnel to be really good offensively? There's no two ways about it. Think about what Tommy DeVito would do for the Jaguars' 5th best pass catcher, much less their best pass catcher. So I think there's a play better side of this. And I'm not confident it happens this week, which is why if I am absolutely benching Trevor Lawrence.
What about DeAndre Hopkins? Are you benching DeAndre Hopkins, or is he a lineup lock, or does he fall somewhere in between? Because when I'm looking at his production field, I'm going to mention this really quickly, okay? Week 1, wide receiver 26. Week 2, wide receiver 62. Wide receiver 61. Wide receiver 38. Wide receiver 7. Then wide receiver 85. Wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 27. Wide receiver 57. He's had 2 weeks inside the top 25 at wide receiver. One of those was an unbelievably efficient game with Will Levis. Yes.
Levis's first game.
Levis's first game. So how are you trusting him?
So let's do the look backwards and then the look forwards here. The look backwards is sort of what you said, but he has more games this season outside the top 60 than inside the top 20, which means that if you've started DeAndre Hopkins, you're more likely to get a bottom outside top 60 as opposed to inside top 20.
Yep.
That's the looking backwards part. The data going backwards would tell us you should not be playing him. The data going forwards is, well, does that matter? Ask yourself this. Do you trust this Titans offense right now?
Do you want me to answer that out loud?
Anybody can. Do you trust them? Do you trust Will Levis and this Titans offense?
I mean, I went real hard for Levis last week, and I got bit, so I'm pulling back.
So, but I feel like he's more of a daily consideration now than a season-long or weekly. So I've got DeAndre Hopkins as wide receiver 26 this week. Still, fringe starter and depending on league size, but that ranking has dropped and continued to drop over the past few weeks.
Field, I think a point you made, again, since I gave Dopp kudos for an episode earlier in the week, is actually the one that to me is more interesting than what you just said. And that's that DeAndre Hopkins, the argument for Hopkins, right, is the volume. Right? Like he's getting the volume. He's a QB 14 who's got a target share of like 27, 28%.
Right.
How many touchdowns?
He's got 3, and they all came in one game.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, it sort of ties into, do you trust this offense to score points?
But yes, but also it doesn't matter. Yes, he's top 10 in deep looks or something like that. Like he's getting red zone opportunities, but the inability to convert is problematic. And as it relates to your rankings, I think what you said was, I'm going to rank players who more consistently convert in the red area of the field. I'm paraphrasing.
No, that's correct.
Than DeAndre Hopkins, which is why he's on the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 bubble.
Yep. That's where that's exactly
I cannot count
how
on
I
6
feel.
from him.
You know what? I need to be better in shows that Liz is not around because now I know she listens, and that's like motivation right there to be great.
Yep. I told you before the show, it's very important that we don't suck today because we know that Liz is definitely going to bring it, and we're going to look bad if we do, Field. I got to be honest. DeAndre Hopkins, this is one of those things that it is so difficult for me because he is like he's like a veteran version of Christian Watson. All of his touchdowns came in one game. He's being absolutely hampered by quarterback play in spite of being a very talented wide receiver. All right, we're going to pay some bills here.
Hopkins better not hear that. Oh, my God.
Yeah, do we need like a Lord Voldemort parallel for Christian Watson?
The most physical receivers in the league?
The wide receiver who must not be named. All right, Field, let's pay some bills, and we're going to come back and keep on previewing this Week 11.
Are you overwhelmed by insurance?
Yep.
Make it easy. Get all your insurance in one place with Geico. Plus, get 24/7 claim support and on-the-go policy access with the award-winning Geico mobile app. See how easy insurance can be and go to geico.com.
Do you guys smell that?
Liz has a great perfume.
I think that's what it is, too. It smells sort of like Dr. Pepper.
Oh,
the fresh scent of Dr. Pepper and freshly cracked Dr. Pepper. That can only mean one thing. It is a college football season tradition. Block off your Saturdays, swipe a sweet DP from the mini fridge because there's a new season of high kicks, long throws, and Fansville commercial breaks to carry you all the way to the West Coast games. That's right, the fans are back, and this year things are heating up. We're talking more hot takes, more heartbreak, more layers of face paint, so get ready to drink in all the drama this season with the help of the most delicious college football tradition there is, Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. All right, back here on Focus, making our way through our Week 11 preview. Guys, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. I've been looking at one of these wide receivers, and it's just been Courtland Sutton. I only care about Courtland Sutton. It hasn't really been a Jerry Jeudy thing for me recently. Are we at a spot now where I'm looking at our rankings?
Yep.
Jerry Jeudy's ranked a little closer to Courtland Sutton than I think I realized I had him as.
Okay.
Is this a lower on Courtland Sutton thing, or do we think that the gap has closed based on how these wide receivers are being used in this Broncos offense?
All right, so they're both outside the top 30 in our rankings.
They are. Yep.
And if you're saying to yourself, wait, Courtland Sutton outside the top 30? This might be a good example of what we just discussed with DeAndre Hopkins, that you probably should have more confidence in Courtland Sutton because he actually scores touchdowns. He has 7 this season.
Yep.
That's more than he had in 2021 and 2022.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and 2020 combined. So the past 3 years, he has 6. He has 7 already this season.
And 4 in a row.
4 in a row, yep. Over the past 4 games specifically, he has 20 catches. Jerry Jeudy has just 13. So these two probably should be further apart. I will adjust my rankings as a result of that. The matchup may be pretty decent, though, and that may be why people are curious about these two players this week.
Yeah.
Mike Clay has noted that it's a positive matchup in his award-winning. Is it award-winning?
Should be.
Well, yeah, I give it an award every day.
Award-winning wide receiver cornerback matchup could be a good matchup here.
Yep.
Also worth noting that Caleb Evans, one of the Vikings starting corners, or at least playing a prominent role, is banged up. He's got a calf injury. Sounds iffy to play on Sunday night. The team tried to claim Jack Jones off of waivers earlier this week, perhaps an indication that Evans might not be available or just a talent play. But yeah, it's a reasonable matchup, and Russell Wilson is all of a sudden kind of cooking. Right? He's been good. Got 18 passing touchdowns. That's 3rd in the NFL this year. Now, the Broncos, if they win on Sunday night, like at some point we will be, I don't know about like all the way back in onto vintage Russ, but if they win this upcoming week, we will be talking about Denver in a very different light. Just because, and I'm not saying they've been swept under the radar, under the rug, over the past 3 weeks, but they had a big win over Kansas City that goes into their bye, right?
Yes.
And then on Monday night, while it was a great win for Denver, the story in a lot of people's eyes was, Buffalo needs to get their act together, and then they fired their offensive coordinator. So these two wide receivers specifically obviously have Sutton with a lot more confidence than Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy, I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah, it's been tough.
I mean, I think Steve Smith said it all.
Could be. Could be.
We've been waiting forever. If you look at Jerry Jeudy has a team red zone target percentage of 8.3%. That is half as much as Adam Troutman.
Yeah.
Adam Troutman.
Girl, for real.
I wasn't expecting that.
Meanwhile, Courtland Sutton, 33.3%. I like those threes.
Probably
an angel number.
Yeah.
So I think in redraft leagues, it's pretty straightforward what to do with Jerry Jeudy. He's a player that should be on benches, but obviously is a hard to justify in your starting lineup player. What do you do with Jerry Jeudy in dynasty leagues? Still young, still
Hope he
talented.
Hope he gets traded, and then that new a new situation.
How many new starts has he had in Denver, though? He's gotten new quarterbacks. He's gotten new coaches. He's gotten new offensive coordinators.
It's a good call.
That's a good point, too, Liz.
Three coaches already for Jerry Jeudy. That's crazy. 4 if you include the interim coach last year.
He is popular because he went to Alabama.
Is that what it is?
He was a first-round pick, too. Sure. I mean, he was a first-round pick who early in his career looked like maybe a promising player. Remember week 1 of last season with Russell Wilson, found the end zone against Seattle. Like, oh my gosh, they figured this out. And
maybe
then not so much.
I'm being a little bit too much on the Alabama train here, but like there is a parallel perhaps at his ceiling to Amari Cooper. A player who I
hope so.
Good routes.
Yeah, I sure
waiting
hope so.
for him to turn over. Obviously not the same number of teams,
right.
but then finally it comes together. But similar skills, similar draft capital spend.
Another Alabama wide receiver that we really like is Devonta Smith. Dallas Goedert is going to be out for this week. And Mike, in the aforementioned shadow report, Mike has L'Jarius Sneed going to be shadowing A.J. Brown, Liz. I know that you read that article every week as well. So does that mean that you're
shadowed in 8 straight games as L'Jarius Sneed?
Has he really?
And the wide receivers he's faced have been terrific. He shadowed an 88% of the routes on the perimeter in those 8 straight games.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's a bona fide, put me on an island type of cornerback.
Does that open, Liz Loza, the option for Devonta Smith to find some value in this Eagles passing game?
100%. There might be a prop that I'm interested in. I might be interested. Okay. I'm not going to say it now.
Does that prop
I was
pop or no?
It may pop a little bit later on.
Maybe on Saturday morning.
Maybe on Saturday morning. Oh, yeah.
I'll be checking that out on ESPN.com.
I love Devonta Smith. He scored in back-to-back weeks, right? Even though he didn't see a ton of volume last week, he still scored in a tough matchup against the Cowboys. Yep. We know he's special.
Projects to be one of the highest scoring games 100%. Of the week. You got some Monday night skin in the game if you still have Devonta Smith on your roster. And as we have seen from Devonta, that switch can be flipped at any moment, right? Like he's such a talented guy. Like his struggles this year are not in the same vein as somebody like Jerry Jeudy, where he's never put it together for a full season. This happened last year with Devonta. He was awesome last year. So the idea of this guy getting on track would not be surprising at all. The Eagles play a very difficult schedule in the second half of their, the second half of their season.
Yep.
They're going to have a lot of games where they got to find a way to keep up with opposing offenses, or at least keep ahead of opposing offenses. I wouldn't be surprised if Devonta Smith is a stock-up player in the second half of the season.
Nail skills, too.
Yes.
10 targets over the last 2 weeks. Some people might not like, 3 targets in week 10, but 10 catches.
Yep.
Over that time.
Yep.
We like 100% catch rate.
And just in case I said this wrong, Dallas Goedert out for this game. Devonta Smith going to play. A.J. Brown going to play. But just making sure that I've clarified that so that we're good to go.
What did you say before?
I mentioned Dallas because that's who they played last week, not Dallas Goedert.
So
I saw your face.
I must have said it. I may have said it incorrectly.
I didn't hear that.
No, I said it okay.
I heard it correctly.
Yeah. Good. All right.
You're a brilliant, smart man.
You're crushing.
Guys, stop it. You're so sweet. And you're starting A.J. Brown. In spite of the shadow report, guys, you're starting A.J. Brown. Don't take him out of your starting lineup.
A.J. Brown is averaging nearly the same number of fantasy points per week as Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
24.
What a stat
23, 24,
is.
something like that.
All right. Let's talk about Kyler Murray. I was so awesome. I was so thrilled to see him look what I thought was awesome on Sunday. Getting out there, utilizing his legs. You wanted to see him not be limited. You wanted to see him out there doing the things that made Kyler feels like all we needed was 1 week. I didn't need more than 1 week for my eye test to know Kyler Murray looks like the guy that Kyler Murray was before, and I feel confident starting him here in week 11 if I need him at the quarterback position.
I've got him as quarterback 11. He's moved up a little bit from where he was last week going into the games. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind that we do have a couple of quarterbacks that we have already mentioned who have bad matchups, right? Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence amongst them, and Lawrence has obviously struggled mightily over the past 8 games. So, Kyler Murray with 6 rushing attempts last season, including a design run for a touchdown. Those are the kind of indicators that help boost the value for Kyler Murray. So I've got him as quarterback 11. There's a pinch of nerves only because we've seen it just once. But if you were the kind of person that got ahead of the curve on Kyler Murray and grabbed him off waivers a month ago or 3 weeks ago when he started practicing again, you will be rewarded with one of the best fill-in quarterback options during bye weeks or your weekly starter for the rest of this season.
Yep.
Anything else to add? I don't know.
Kyler Murray headlined my facts versus feelings column this week because I was so wrapped with his re-debut, I guess you could say. Some rust from a passing perspective, but to be expected. Obviously, no DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, but the chemistry he showed with Trey McBride was fantastic. Also, just a little props to me who tabbed that as a matchup to look forward to.
Thank you very much, Liz. You crushed it.
Murray averaged 20 fantasy points per game in 2022. Those numbers would make him a top 5 fantasy play in 2023. I also have him, though, up from like QB 15 range, which is where I had him ahead of week 10 to, I think, low end QB1 in that 11, 10, 12 range for this. So
somewhere
I'm on
in there.
the same.
Well, you mentioned Trey McBride as well, understanding how good he looked last week. 8 for 131 on 9 targets.
Matchup helped.
The matchup did help. It was against the Atlanta Falcons. Now they get the Houston Texans. He's had 20 or more fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games field. Is there a way that you are not starting Trey McBride? Do you not have confidence? Is there anything that you worry about?
I mean, if I have a lineup where I already have Travis Kelce and I'm literally not allowed to play a tight end beside Travis Kelce, that would be it. But over the past 3 games, he has 28 targets. It speaks for itself.
It's huge.
Super
Also,
talented player, trending in all the right positive directions here. I'm in on Trey McBride. Certainly looks the part on the field. Like, give me some Trey McBride. Big time.
Let me give props to Mike Clay, who also mentioned on an episode earlier this week that he was willing to shout out the cornerbacks in Houston who have been stingy to wide receivers, Steven Nelson, Shaq Griffin, and why is the third
Derek
guy?
Stingley's kind of
Thank
bad.
you, Derek
but,
Stingley.
Yeah.
So when a team is stingy against wide receivers, guess what opens up? The
Tight
middle
end
of the
spots,
field.
people. Yeah.
Yep, and that's why the Houston Texans have allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends.
I'm all in on that. Love me some Trey McBride this week, especially with Kyler Murray back under center. It makes me feel like this Arizona Cardinals offense is, well, Field's going to take off. No big deal. This Arizona Cardinals offense is doing some positive things here. Really pumped for that. That's really it for the end of the show. Wow. I wondered, Field
Look
Yates.
who had time to go to the grocery store, even though he's got 2 under 2. For who?
So tomorrow, everybody,
Probably
you'll
for me.
notice that it'll be Liz and I holding it down.
Yeah.
Stefania will be here for her customary segment about injuries at the beginning of the show, and that'll be Liz and I holding it down. Why? Daniel Dopp has a very much deserved day off for his 25th birthday tomorrow,
thank
buddy.
you, Field. Yes.
So I believe legally I'm not allowed to sing happy birthday to you. There is some like copyright issues. We might own the rights to like a... There it is.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Shut up.
So Daniel, we were gonna light candles. That's also like a fire code violation. So we brought you cupcakes for your birthday. One of them kind of tips, but you can decide if you want
That's
that one or
amazing.
not.
Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome so much.
I love working with everybody so much here on the Fantasy Focus.
So what do you have planned? You have a big getaway.
We do have a big getaway. Thank you so much for this. We're going to head on out to New York. My wife Rosie and I are going to go down there. We're going to check out a shop called B&H Photo. We don't get to very often because it's closed on the weekends. And then we're going to go check out some bands, our friends that we love very much. They're in a band called Foxing and the Hotelier. They are playing in New York on Friday night.
Any idea?
I have no idea. No, I didn't even know that we were going. Rosie bought tickets. I didn't
love
know. She was
Rosie.
like, I'm just going to surprise you with this.
They're B&H Photo?
Two of our favorite records, too. Yeah, and B&H Photo, we're going to
Do they sell like
camera stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so
Such
we're
an
gonna
artsy couple.
we're gonna try and do some
like,
camera things.
We go to
and-
like Target on Fridays. You know?
well,
Yeah.
this is not a normal Friday, but yeah. So we're gonna go down there get some sushi at a place called Kazunori too. That's my favorite sushi spot in New York City. So
Nice.
shout out to Al Zeidenfeld for teaching me about Kazunori. So it's a good time.
If it's a place that Al likes, do they like sell you like one piece of sushi for like
It's like
$94?
You're
$700.
going to get that
exactly what it is.
omakase, that
Yes.
birthday omakase?
yes, nothing
All
wrong with that.
right.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right.
guys, you're so sweet. Thank you for doing this.
Are you excited?
I am super pumped.
Are you one of
kidding
those
me?
people? Remember Matthew used to always hate his birthdays. Do you like your birthdays or no?
At this point, you know what? I don't hate my birthdays.
Okay.
But I don't celebrate them in the same way that I used to because there is a part where like you start getting older and you're like, it's just not quite as fun to be like, I'm
Contraire.
25 now.
Contraire. You're a birthday person? You are a birthday. We had your birthday earlier. Yeah, we were there. It was great. We went to an awesome location.
Yeah, we did.
Near to ESPN. Played some old school college games. It was great. Yeah, you should celebrate your birthday. Deserve it.
should.
Yeah.
Well, we will celebrate you even if you are not interested
Yeah.
in celebrating
I
the day
appreciate
on
you
which you
guys.
were born. And I'm sure Mama Dopp is grateful for that day
Oh
every
yeah,
year.
she's watching right now.
Shout
too,
out
right?
to Mama Dopp
Yeah.
in labor for 72 hours
Oy.
waiting for me to come out. So,
72 hours.
yeah. Yep. 72 hours.
then
So
she
we should
got
have
up.
celebrated your birthday
Yes.
on Tuesday when
Tuesday,
labor
yes.
began. Oh my
it got
gosh.
to a point where she was like, just rip this child
Oh,
out
yeah.
of me.
Don't say rip.
Well,
Jesus.
you're
What are
right,
we
but
doing?
you know what I mean.
What are we doing?
Well, you're right.
That 72 hours?
yeah.
as if I wasn't enough of an admirer of your mom already. She is an absolute warrior.
She's a warrior. She's a
We
champ.
can probably ship these overnight to where she lives
Mama
now.
Dopp. That's right.
Good
But
idea.
honestly, thank
Happy
you
birthday.
for being born, and thank you to Mama
thank you
Dopp for
guys.
helping make
Mama
that
Dopp,
situation happen. You were wonderful.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Phil, both of you.
Yeah,
You're
thanks for
amazing.
bringing a smile to so many people's face, including ours every single day. And go enjoy the heck out of it. We'll have Liz tomorrow. Mike's gone as well. Mike is so rude.
gonna be an
He
awesome
decided
Friday
not to
show.
show up for your birthday show. So
What's
you
up with
guys
that?
can have a conversation about that off mic if you'd like. But yes, as far as I'm concerned, Mike is persona non grata to you.
I'm with you on that
You
one.
know what? I'm not sure. I'm not an Ivy Leaguer like Liz. Did I use persona non grata there appropriately?
Perfectly. Heading
Really?
into a show in which you and I are working alone tomorrow, you used it wonderfully.
Why,
too.
thank you. Okay.
That's amazing. I cannot wait. I'm really pumped to be able to go out, do that whole New York trip, come home, and then just get myself a nice big bowl of Greek yogurt with some granola. It's going to be fantastic.
Stop that. You locked that up.
We love you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with us. That's going to do it for our Thursday
Bye.
show. Check in on Friday. We love you. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. We'll see you, some of us, tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Daniel.
Peace.
Happy birthday.
Does anybody want a cupcake? You want one, Liz?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I will totally. Yes, I definitely want
you can
this whole
smell that.
pan. Oh my
I want
gosh.
to make you
look
like,
at that.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Did he eat the whole thing? Oh my God.
Right in his mouth.
That's amazing.
fantastic.
And really good.
Oh God.
Cut the mic. I cut the camera so you don't have to keep doing this.
The funfetti one.
You know who's going to love this? My kids are going to love this right now. This is the greatest version of Happy Birthday of all time, by the way.